let's be real, most people do not like change. And there's so many obstacles in this economy, but a really great business owner knows how to turn those obstacles into opportunities. And that really is the truth. It's just sometimes hard to see, but we are going to help agents navigate this today as we do, because we're in it too, navigating it and learning. Some of the bullet points I got for today have to do with being the go-to for everything, otherwise known as the knowledge broker, having a mindset to win, leveraging technology to accelerate and make it easier to win in a challenging market, and then finally having the right people and systems and brokerage, around you, team to help you succeed. What are some of your big headlines for
don't give up?
What to succeid? Don't give up. Love that.
I learned that in 2009. It's like, real estate's dead. I give up. Just I didn't totally give up, but I did go back and become a paramedic for a while. It just it's an opportunity to take it to a higher level, right? People talk about that a lot with the NAR decision that's coming down. And I mean, it's not going to be a big deal if you're in production. It might be challenging if you're just starting out, unless you're with a team, but it's an opportunity to look at things, retool. I mean, you've done this in your career. It's fantastic. So yeah, I used to worry about failure. Now I'm like, bring it. Let's try it. It doesn't work. Next. That's how you figure it all out, right? And I think it's important to have a multi-pronged approach so that you don't have to rely on one thing working all the time to get by in a enjoyable, comfortable way where you can thrive and love your family and not stress out all the time. It's a much, much better situation than it was in the last slowdown.
Well, let's not look about what is happening. Let's outline all the challenges, all the obstacles that people may not be aware of, but I think they probably are aware of, but that will help seed why our advice is the way it is. So we've got low inventory. So there's not a lot of people who are selling. There's not a lot of people who are buying compared to the past. There's not a lot of people who are building compared to what should be happening. There's high interest rates. Okay, so everyone knows that, I'm sure. Okay, what's been interesting is everyone talks about inflation from a consumer standpoint. Like, we are noticing the price of things as consumers going up.
Yeah.
But you said you read something around inflation for business owners, which obviously, of course, it's inflation all around.
No, it's significant though, and it's higher than I would have thought. It was an amazing speech by an economist who flew out from the East Coast to talk to us. And he was saying that just running your business the same as you did in 2020, on average, costs you $12,000 more, which, like, you need to make that up. You need to figure out a way to compensate for that. A lot of people are working harder, but if you're working harder and doing the same thing that you were doing 4 years ago, can pretty much guarantee you're losing traction.
And that's profit, right? So, like, the other thing that people always need to understand is, like, if your expenses for your business are $5,000 more a year, 10 grand more a year, 20 grand more a year, whatever that number is, that is profit.
Yeah.
So you need to make even more revenue because you've got expenses are needed for increased revenue. And it's so much harder to just leverage your profit up. Yeah. And so compound that with the cost of advertising. Anyone who has been spending money on social media to advertise on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever, it's not getting cheaper. The cost per clicks and cost per lead is not getting cheaper. Yeah. It's getting more expensive. But and then you now compound that with what's happening in the industry with this big NAR settlement and overall commission, potentially the future of buyers agents. I would love your take on it, because I haven't talked to you about, educate users, like, what's happened and what is happening in the laws and regulations, NAR, and then what is the implications of it?
It's simple, but it's the water is muddied because people are panicking and they're saying things that just aren't true. And worst case scenario is like the way a lot of people lead. I get that. That's human nature, but it's just not accurate. Like, you need to ask yourself, do I know this is true? Absolutely. Like 100% positive that what I'm thinking right now is accurate. And if so, why? Right? Why do I think that? As doom scrolling and seeing all the bad news? But it's very simple. NAR, a lot of people are disappointed that the folks who are representing realtors didn't try harder, but I think they were just afraid to gamble essentially the future of real estate with what could have been a major penalty if they lost, right? So they went with something that was manageable. At a settlement, they agreed they will no longer have agents essentially advertising what the buyer's agent gets on a public forum on MLS. So you can put it other places. You can call the listing agent and ask them what the seller's going to pay. But I don't think it's going to change so much that like all of a sudden buyer's agents are working for free, right? That's not tenable. So you can't just imagine like, oh, I'm going to save 2% or 2.5% somewhere in there. No one's going to work for free. What's going to happen is that, and it's already happened, the commission for the buyer's agent has been categorized as a closing cost. And you could absolutely, as a buyer's agent, ask the seller to pay the buyer's closing costs. It's the same as it's always been. The other option is going to completely stall the market, and that's what people were originally afraid of. Was like, if you're asking the buyer to pay commission out of pocket and they can't fold that into the loan like they've been doing forever. I mean, people, technically, I guess the seller has been paying the buyer's agent fee, but it's part of the price of the house because it's across the entire market. So I think the opportunity that I see to up level is that it's also going to require buyer's agents to have a contract, an agreement with their clients that spells out exactly what they're going to do for them, what the client can expect, when they're going to incur fees, if any. And my buyer broker I've used for years, it essentially keeps people honest because it's clear. And if you don't want to go by those parameters, renegotiate or fire the agent, whatever works for you. But it's really nice as an agent representing a buyer, knowing that that buyer can at any point normally just switch to a different agent who's more convenient, or, the listing agent, or, there's a lot of different options. Somebody's cousin's daughter's friend that you met at a party. I mean, it's just nice to know that all this work that goes into finding someone a house and taking them through that entire transaction in a way that limits their liability, you get rewarded for, right? You don't typically take a high-level job that's based on the whim of the client at the end. Although, I mean, I have that guarantee that you're satisfied or don't pay me, right? I've never had anyone take me up on that. But I also ask them to tell me if there's something they want done differently, give me a chance to do it differently. And that happens every once in a while. Someone wants a phone call a day, or there's all kind of things people want.
So I'm from the homeowner's perspective. If I have to pay, typical agent would make like 5-10 grand on a deal on a low priced home, 10 to 20 on a high priced home. Obviously, you can go higher than that, potentially lower than that, but like it's usually between like 5 and 15 grand. It's like so what has been when a 6% split 3 and 3, or 5% split 2.5, or whatever it may be in the area.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, the buyer has to pay that up for, like, extra. It's like I'm paying a down payment and I'm paying this extra, like that. That's just not going to happen. Like that's just not going to happen.
That's why people were panicking, because that's how
it's
it
just
was
not going to
presented.
happen because now people can afford as many homes if that was going to be the case. Because like that's a big amount of money for a buyer just to come up with extra versus be able to mortgage it in to the price. Now the ways around that, which is why I think it's just a lot of education needs to happen, which is an opportunity, because now you have a reason to talk to people to explain how real estate needs to get done. And then when you come off as this expert in real estate with like, look, whenever you are thinking about buying or selling, talk to me, or let me just educate you now through a video or a coffee chat on like, this is how it's going to get done. This is how I recommend you do it. Because if you're a buyer, because then that begs this other question of like, because the thing that I think almost homeowners don't even know, some, is everything's negotiable, period.
Yeah.
It always has been.
Yeah.
So if I'm like right now, to sell our house, we the sellers agreed to give an extra 10 grand in commission to the buyer's agent.
What?
And we're like, if you bring the buyer to buy this house, we will give you another $10,000.
Yeah. Wow.
Because it's a high enough price home, and we just, we want it sold for the right price. And so we the seller even agreed to paying more.
Right.
To encourage buyer's agent to be like, holy shit, I need to start advertising this property and telling my network about this property.
Right.
It worked. So like, sellers don't necessarily know that, okay, look, if you want to sell this great asset, yeah, sometimes incentives freaking work to get people to work for you, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to tell all the agents in your local area to work for you to sell your house for the max price.
Exactly.
And to sell it to people, and incentives work. But then say I'm a seller, I'm like, no, I only want to pay 3% now. I don't want to pay 6%. I want to pay 3% to my listing agent, and I'm not paying for this buyer's agent. The buyer's agent who has a buyer, because there are other properties in the market that potentially will still allow a buyer's agent to make a commission,
right?
And they'll say that, like, it's not allowed, right? The settlement is not saying a seller can't also give a buyer's agent a commission,
right?
And so then this is an interesting situation. I want to see what you think about this one. I'm a buyer's agent working with someone who is agreed to either put it into the price of the home and it's mortgaged and that's how I get paid,
right?
Or potentially the sellers are going to give it to me, and so then you don't need to pay extra, and so that if that happens, great. But let's say there's a seller who's not doing it. We can then still put an offer on the house and be like, look, here's the offer from my buyer, and you have to pay the 3% to me in order to get this accepted offer.
Yeah.
And then what? The seller's going to say, I'll take this offer, but I'm not paying the buyer's agent. And then does the buyer then go, well, hey, agent, like, I'm paying 500 grand and they will accept it, but not want to give you any. So do I not get to have this house for 500 grand because you need to make that commission?
This is why it's important to work with someone who's a master negotiator. So you don't paint yourself into a corner. The agent doesn't paint the client into the corner. It's not that different than normal. People need to get paid. They need to be compensated for the work they do. And my concern right now, they've fixed all of this. Has been newly created terms that work for conventional loans, cash buyers, FHA loans, but the VA loans, it's not fixed permanently. They've offered a workaround where temporarily you can have the buyer to compensate their agent through the closing, but it's kind of awkward. And what they were trying to prevent, which was, they called it price fixing, as if people didn't know the negotiation around commission was possible. I don't understand that, because it says it right in the contract, and it's always been part of my conversation with people. But you get what you pay for, right? And so, yeah, you can do a flat fee, you can do a 1% listing and hope it sells. You can pay 6% to all parties and know you're going to get really well represented. Typically, that money that is paid in commission, you get more than you pay in commission by the tune of about $10,000. Like the comparison from, say, for sale by owner, where they're not paying commission, they on average lose a net $10,000 because they don't know how to negotiate properly. They have to do more repairs. It's a total nightmare. I mean, it's just, there's a reason you wouldn't. Yeah. You shouldn't.
Oh no, they did a study. They did a study. I remember looking at the stats, and it was 194. Like the average home for sale by owner home sold for 194,000. The average comparable home sold by an agent was like 234,000 or something.
And
it's
people
like,
they're so happy because they're like, it sold today. I'm like,
yeah, and you're like, what is 6% on 234? That means you're netting what, 225 versus 194.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
it's
yeah,
not a conversation worth starting. I mean, if people
so the opportunity in this is so much education needs to happen.
yeah,
And
it's good.
And now you have a reason to talk to people, which is the whole game of real estate is conversation.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity for this mess that the NAR and the Doge and all that shit, right? The mess that they've created.
Yeah.
Actually gives you so much reason to have conversations with people, to educate them and come off as an expert, and to think through all the scenarios and have a plan for all the scenarios,
Exactly.
to then teach your clients about all the different scenarios. And here's what's going to happen. And I'm ready to help you navigate this, because if you go unrepresented, there are some downsides.
Yeah.
Right. So that's obviously what some people are thinking is like, oh, I don't need a buyer's agent. I'm just going to go unrepresented and go directly listing agent. It's like, there's two parties negotiating against you, and you're probably an unskilled negotiator at this thing you've probably never done before.
Yeah.
There's
so
that's going to be bad.
There's 1,000 moving parts to every transaction,
and
30% of them are handled by your agent.
So when I see this, I go, conversation starters galore.
I know,
right? Hooks, questions. Hey, do you know how this could negatively affect you as a buyer and a seller?
Right.
What? Like, you go to your friend in your database. Hey, have you seen this news? And do you know like how this could negatively affect you? No. Do you want to have a coffee date about it? Because I need to teach everyone I know how this can benefit you, but how this could hurt you, and how you need to work with agents in the future, whether you work with me or not. And when you come off as that, you think they're going to probably hire you? Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one, education, and two, be a listing agent. Like avoid, try to avoid this altogether and go be a listing agent.
Right. It's hard when you're brand new to teach, like to get someone to accept that you're going to do the best job, but it can be done. I've done it, when I was new. But yeah, it's an advantage for agents who are highly professional, communicate at a higher level with their clients. That's what I see shaken out. Is it's true with AI. It's like, poor agents are easily replaced. If your agent is, a lot of times agents cause problems if they're not good, or if they're panicking because they're failing. That stat of 87% of agents don't make it past their third year. Like, choose an agent who's been doing this for a while. God bless the brand new agents, but this is not probably the best time to start into a real estate career unless you have really good coaching and you have someone who's backing you up who can keep you from making mistakes like this. It's important how you talk about things, and the way that people need to hear them changes depending on the person, right? You can't just have one, what they call it, a script.
So some of the best businesses and really top agents, you talk about when they started, and they're like 08, 09, 2010. So like it's been possible, and here's the reason why. In these tough times, a lot of people are leaving the industry. So people in 2019, people complained that there was over 2 million agents, and like there's just so many agents because it was just a breeze to be an agent. It was easier, not a breeze, but easier.
Right.
And so in these tough times, there's a whole bunch of weak people who are just retreating, who are quitting the industry, who are getting jobs, who are leaving. And so there's an opportunity to now get market share. That even though the total transaction volume may be low for 2024, like it was in 23 and compared to in the past, if you can get market share and mind share, then when the market speeds up, which it always has and always will, no one just has a crystal ball of when, but it will, then you then start to really crush it. And so again, that's the opportunity, is there's now so much time, there's more time to build your brand, build your database, build your market share, and mind share in your local area, even because the competition is waning away.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's why I put in the caveat that you just need to have a good coach or team, because you can't afford to just put in sweat equity and learn the hard way for a year what doesn't work. Like, let someone help you explain what's going to work and what's not going to work. Yeah, absolutely. Once your systems are in place to thrive during a tough time, when things get better, it's heavenly, you know? It's like you're so glad that, yeah. And I think too, there's a huge advantage to seeing a tough time, because then when it happens again and cycles through, and it will eventually, it's just the nature of business. You're not going to freak out. You're going to think to yourself, how do I use this as an opportunity to improve my level of service and stand out from everyone else who's panicking, right? And thinking of themselves. Like, you have to give more than you ever have before. And that, in my mind, fixes just about everything, as long as you're giving it at a high level, that's masterful.
The one statistic I lean into and change perspective on is the number of transactions. So everyone looks at the number of transactions and they go, it's only going to be like 4 million this year. And in the past, it's been 5 or 6. And in 2021, it was 7 million total transactions in North America. And it's projected maybe to be around 4 again. Like 2020 was 4 point something.
Per agent?
No, total, like just total transactions happening, like total real estate homes sold in the US, right? So the average, like you'll go back to 90s, 2000s, it's pretty much been 5 to 6 million a year. And then there's low years of 3.5 to 4.5, and then there's crazy high years of 6 to 7 years, and right. 7 million transactions that happened in 2 years ago. That was like record. That was the record. And so like you can't judge the market based on the record. You do it based on like what's typically been. And 4 million is still a lot of freaking transactions. It's not like it's dropped to 1 million.
Right.
It's still 4 million compared to 5 or 6. Like it's still a lot. And so then the opportunity, and this is what I know, my friend who's an agent, I go, because she works in, her market is like a ski town, like second home.
Right.
And depending on this, for her in her market, like other markets could be crushing in 2019 or 18. And if the dollar crashes, she's actually heavily affected because, hey, Canadians aren't buying second homes for these reasons, but Americans are, because look at the dollar.
Right.
So then she would now go see an opportunity to now go network with a whole bunch of Americans and build her database so that no matter what's happening in the market, as you said, like it always cycles up and down. And depending on the market, it's like, I need to lean into my American database right now versus my Canadian database. Or in this market, if you're just in a regular area, there's still 4 million transactions. So there are people who are buying and selling. It's the people who are irrespective of the market. And so who buys and sells irrespective of the market? First-time home buyers, yes, it's gotten more expensive, but then you look at certain professions who have a certain amount of money, and when they get to a certain age, they're able to afford a home. Right. They may not afford as nice of a home as they could in a different market. And then there's people who work in a lower paying job who may not be buying their first home, but then, okay, you still have this arena of white collar professionals who are buying their first home between the ages of 25 and 35 or something. And then you've got, hey, when people have kids, which people are having kids, like they got to get out of that condo. Like they have to upgrade. And so like they're still moving, and then people get divorced and they're still selling their homes. And then people are dying. They're still selling their homes. People are relocating for jobs. They're still selling their homes because they have to. And so what is some of your advice to agents as like the opportunity in this market to target?
So being a part of several different communities that are important to you is not advice that I hear very often, if ever, right? People talk about you have to go to church and pretend like you're religious to get a bunch of clients. Like, that's a really bad idea. Like, authenticity, I think, is the main thing that people are looking for, right?
Yeah.
I'm really transparent with my flaws, for example, but it just, I was laughing because we lived in a condo with 2 young kids, and it was like, oof, so much harder than I thought it was going to be. And we had to, we were in between houses, and we just were doing something that we knew we'd never do any other time. So that's where we went with that. But it didn't last long. It was I think 13, 14 months, and we were ready to be done with that, even though it was a great part of town. But I think the answer is kind of both. Like, you need to tap into those communities. You need to do it in an authentic way that feels true to yourself. Otherwise, I came from South Carolina. One of the things that bothered me is, like, typically there was encouraged for you not to tell someone the truth if it was going to hurt their feelings. It's like, how are you going to have a deep relationship unless you are honest and you work through things? So I think about real estate similar to relationships. For me, I just think it's really important to have deep relationships with your business partners, with your clients. That way you know that you're giving them what they really need, right? If you don't know them at all, you're showing them the wrong property at the most base level. It's like, they're not going to buy something if it's not meeting their needs. So look for ways that you can give to all of those different communities one at a time. Like, create a system that addresses first-time home buyers, right? They're easy to give to because they need information. They need to know how this is going to go. And one thing I offer is just call me anytime you have a question. Like, I love being a resource for people. And if it's something I don't know, which is rare because I've been doing this for 24 years at a pretty high level, I can find someone who is an expert at that exact question and answers. If it's people that are downsizing, right, that it just depends too on your demographic. That's like, I know more buyers and sellers that are roughly my age than I do people that are 20. So look to enhance your strength. Don't try and do something if you have zero skill at it. Like, it's so much easier to take something that you're good at and you love doing and people that you jive with and enhance that, right? So make sure that that's a mistake that I see people make is they're like, oh, I'm going to do 10 new things. And for sure, one of them is going to work. It's like, you're going to do 10 new things poorly. The chances of any of them working are slim. Right? Do start with one thing, the most likely area that you can expand. Make sure you're giving as much as you can to your primary clients who already know and trust you. And you're looking for the clients that are going to come from them thinking of you when their friend, who's also cool like them, who will also get along with you and trust you like their friend did, and go there. Like, 80% of business typically comes from your sphere of influence. But, making an extra 20% every year from reaching out in additional ways, that's no joke, right? That's life-changing. That's the difference between paying your bills and getting by and having being 3 paychecks away from not being able to pay your bills. And having enough extra that you can buy more houses, you can put your kids through college, you can buy them houses. It's something I'm really super grateful for. And I've worked really hard to get to that level, but there are keys to succeeding like that. It has to be consistent, and it has to be well thought out and well planned out. And that's why I come back to coaching and having a mentor that has done exactly what you're trying to do and done it successfully 4 years. That's not an accident, right? I guarantee you, like me, I feel like I've failed more than most everybody I know. But I embrace it. It's like, teach me how to succeed. I learn. It's like, playing baseball. Like, you learn so much more from losing a game, right? And figuring out how to improve for the next game than you would if you just won every game, right? Why do you need to learn anything new if you're just winning? That's back to your point of starting in a down market. It's like, you need to be working at a really high level, and you need to be focusing on things that are most likely to help you succeed. And then once you get that done, and for me, that sometimes that takes my whole day. Sometimes I'm done at noon, and then you can dabble and do things that are just like, oh, maybe I'll try this. But it's got to be start with the core things that are most likely to be successful.
Yeah, the a strategy and figuring out what aligns with you and the type of people you want to work with, because there is still so much opportunity. Both your competition is retreating and quitting, and there's still a lot of buyers and sellers out there, and in certain segments, and then finding, because again, yeah, really good add-on. You can't target them all. So everything I said about all those different segments, you can't target them all. Pick the one that you like, that you resonate with, that you want to target, because there's still enough business just in that one segment that you pick.
Yeah.
That if you commit and put in the work, because yes, it's a little bit harder. But then the other thing that I wrote down around this was, because of all the situations, you have to work harder, but then that instills habits that allows you to be successful.
Absolutely.
Like when things are easy, it's human nature to back off. And then that becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And then your future results are a function of the decisions, all the decisions you make on a daily basis, all the habits you make on a daily basis, all the stuff you do today gives you the results in real estate in 3, 6, 9 months from now.
Exactly.
And so I know for me, it's they say, oh, play some mental tricks on yourself so that you feel like your back's up against the wall when you're doing well. Yeah, that is true. That's what you should do. You should have such crazy high goals and do some sort of mental ninja wizardry on yourself that you feel like your back's against the wall even when you're crushing it. But I can tell you from firsthand, having gone through many periods of that in my life, that is really hard. And so then when the market is tough, it is that force multiplier. It is that thing that gets you to move because you have to.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when things get good, you don't stop because you're just in momentum from all of the action that you had to take. And without that tough time, you don't become stronger.
Can I add to that?
Go for it.
I think that's exactly right. I would agree with that 100%. And when you mention having huge goals that are, likely unattainable, there's a human need to be successful, I think. And I felt this way often where I make my goal like, oh, I did that, so let's try doing twice as much. It's like, that's great, but you got to be careful that you don't end up feeling like you're failing all year because you're not on pace to get your goal. So what I recommend is to put in a win the day system where if you do, for me, it's like 20 contacts with people, set 2 appointments, go on 2 appointments. That's it. I just won that day and I feel good about it. And it resets the system in my head of like, you're failing. I'm like, my second year, I was in the top 5% of agents, and it just got better after that. I was like, doing better. That's really conceited, right? And selfish. Like, I'm sitting here feeling like a failure while doing better than 95% of the agents in the country. What a tool, right? That's not what I would recommend. Figure yourself out. Like, yourself. If you're the system, game the system. Right? Figure out a way to stay positive and improve. And for me, it's just giving more. Like the more I give, the less likely it is that I'm going to feel like a failure. Right? So it's self-serving in a way, ultimately, kind of in a roundabout way. But yeah, you gotta stay up, right? You gotta look for meaning in what you do. And selling is not inherently all that meaningful unless you do it with heart and soul and connection and get people more than they could get from clicking on a house on eBay or whatever.
Well, that brings up, so that brings up two things. One was this really cool reflection on goal setting from a psychologist, like someone who studied neuroscience and psychology. And then the other one around defining success.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, I got this originally from sports, and it's like applying this to business. So the first one is, if your goal is too big and your belief around achieving that goal is low, then you notice the obstacles and challenges along the way as problems that bring you down,
Right.
and deter and make it harder for you to achieve that goal,
Right.
because you're so far away already. And when we are in momentum and feeling positive and optimistic and confident, it's because we feel like we're close.
Right.
If it's too easy, right? If I say, I made this money last year. What's your goal? I want to make the same. That's not very motivating. And so
Right.
you can't have it something be too easy, right? If I'm a tennis player and I'm like, I want to win this match, and my wife laughed. She was like, she won her group in tennis. So
No
she was in
surprise.
3.0. She was in 3.0. She won hers in this tournament. I was in 4.5. I lost in the semis. And I'm sitting there angry, and she's like, well, I'm not overly that happy because the quality of the players wasn't that good. Like, it wasn't that great of an achievement to win 3.0. I should have entered 3.5, and I may not have won,
Right.
but then I might have had like better matches.
Right.
And so same thing with business. Like, you can't be dead easy, but you can't be super hard. And so psychologists said to tell people, so if you're thinking about goal setting, ask yourself this question. I do this with my team all the time. I say, look, write down all your goals on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being I'm absolutely certain because this is dead easy, 1 being there's no chance in hell I'm achieving this.
Right. Yeah.
Where are you out of 10? And the sweet spot for goals is in that 6, 7, 8 range. Really 7, 8, because
Right.
6 kind of starts to get a little bit too.
Makes you
Because if it's 9 or 10, it's kind of dead easy. It may not be that motivating. If it's like below a 6, a 5, 4, 3 less, you're like, man, this is daunting, and I feel down every day that I'm not close. And so with goal setting, I'm always thinking about being at sweet spot of a 7 and 8, because let's say you made 50 grand and you want to make 100 grand, but you're like, I don't know. Like, that's maybe like a 5, but you're like, hey, I'm gonna make 75 grand. And you're like, okay, that one, I feel like an 8.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So then you go out about your year, and then all of a sudden you make 80, and you're like, sweet, I reached my goal.
Right.
Well, the next year, the 100 grand is no longer a 5 out of 10. You're like, I want to make 100 grand. Well, that feels like an 8 now that I made 80.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in 2 years, you actually make the goal that you did want. But you took steps to get there, because if you then stuck to 100, and you might have felt bad. And if you feel bad, then you're not doing the activities, you're not speaking the right way, and then you don't actually even make the 80 because you're feeling bad.
It becomes your expectation, because that's your experience, that you get what you set out to get. So it's self-enhancing. Right.
So yeah, so be in that sweet spot. And then the other one, which you talked about, which on a daily basis, is you have your goal, your outcome goal, that is your quarterly or annual goal, and that should be an outcome, because like we need to achieve outcomes. But then on a day-to-day basis, what are things that I'm in control over? 'Cause you're not totally in control over how much money you make.
No.
But you're in control over how many calls you make. You're in control over your attitude. You're in control over all your activities.
Right.
And if you define success on your process, on achieving your process, then you feel like a winner on a daily basis.
Right.
Business really is a process and a mathematical equation of, you do these inputs, you're likely going to get these outputs.
Most people don't do that exercise, though. I have the best business plan I've ever seen is based on some formulas that calculate themselves. You put in how much you want to make, and at the end of it, you know exactly how many calls based on your personal history you need to make that year, that day. You know how many one-on-one connections, how much marketing you need to do. It's just very clear. And The most puzzling thing, one of the most puzzling things in real estate from coaching many agents is their complete, it's like a complete mystery to them why they're not more successful. It's like, well, if you need to make 10 calls a day to set the number of appointments that you can typically set, and you're making 2 calls a day, why is that a mystery? It's anyway, I'm wired a little differently than most. For me, I'm like, if I need to make 10 to be successful, I'm going to make 20 because I want to hedge my bets, right? How can I hedge my bets and ensure that I'm successful and not, like, me failing is not an option, right? I will keep trying until I die to succeed at the highest level that I can, that I find meaningful, right? I'm not trying to sell 500 homes a year because that's not the life I want. I'm trying to personally sell 30 homes a year on average, consistently, and help other agents learn how to do the same. And their goal doesn't have to be the same as mine. I mean, honestly, in this market, if you're selling 15 to 25 homes a year, you're having an amazing life. Like, you should not have to worry about anything if you're bringing in that kind of income, right? Unless you're mismanaging it. But that's a whole other.
Unless you're spending a bunch of money to make do those transactions, because I've seen so many agents just go, "Oh, I was the rookie of the year." Like, I remember one of the clients who ended up working with us. I went to their house, met this husband and wife, and they were like, "We're rookies of the year at our brokerage." And I was like, "Wow!" I'm like, "How many transactions do you do?" They did 96 in their first year. And I said, "How much did you spend?" I didn't even miss a beat. I'm like, "How much did you spend to do that?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Why? Why do you say that?" I'm like, I've been in this industry for a long time.
Right.
No one just comes out of the gates in their first year and does 96 deals without spending a boatload of money on advertising. And then the wife looks at the husband, and he was like,
60.
"Yeah, we didn't actually make any money."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wow." I'm like, "So you did all these transactions, but you didn't make any money?" "Yeah, we spent so much money on Zillow and Realtor.com and all these things." And I was like, "What is the point?" I'm like, "What is the point of all of it?"
Yeah.
Like, seriously, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And so that was why we put them on a path to, like, building a business on relationships and referrals, because you can make more, you can keep more money and not be, because it's stressful to work with 96 clients. Like, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
So let's go into that, because one of the major things that you alluded to and is super important, especially in tough times, is the people around you. Whether that be your team, whether that be your brokerage, whether that be the vendors you work with, coaches you hire, communities you're a part of, your friends and family. And you've had a career where you've been at multiple brokerages, and that is one of the main lifelines for an agent, which is your brokerage, the people at the brokerage, and potentially the people on your team. And there's so many different models out there for people. Maybe you can talk about your journey as an agent, in which brokerages you were with, which one you are now, why you made those decisions, and what you think is really important for agents, because the people around you will also help you with your mindset, and they'll help you with your strategy. They'll help you achieve your goal.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is why I stayed at RE/MAX for 16 years, because I had a relationship with the top supervising principal broker in the city. He never hired a new agent before. I was the first one, because he knew that 2 years later, likely 87% or 80% of the time at 2 years, they're done. They're not going to renew their license. They give up. So his policy was come back in 2 years. But we hit it off so well that I guess I closed him pretty hard. He just started laughing. He was like, "What am I going to do? All right, I'm going to try this." We met every week, at least once a week, sometimes twice. We go out for lunch. I mean, he just taught me to have someone who has 30 years experience at the top of the game available to you for immediate answers to quandaries. It's invaluable. That was Rod Reddick. He's an amazing guy. So, but RE/MAX wasn't offering much. Like, they're old school. Like all the big brokerages that are, household names have been around forever and they don't change that much, right? When things got slow, I went to Rod. I'm like, what should I do? It's like, well, door knocking, cold calling, and personal note. I was like, I don't think that's going to fix the recession that we're having in 2009. So I switched to a very high tech brokerage, cutting edge. I love cutting edge stuff. That didn't work because the owner of that brokerage was not a good guy. I'm not naming any name, but he basically spent everyone's desk fee that he had them pay in advance, and then he had to leave the country. It was it was not pretty. Yeah,
Oh man.
but it's 2011 at this point. So I thought, well, maybe what I need is a brokerage that doesn't charge me anything, so I can save money, right? So I went to one of these brokerages that I can't remember. It was like $1,000 a year or something. They literally did nothing for me. Ended up, they put their hand in my pocket for a $10,000 commission that I had in writing from them that they weren't going to do when I left the company and went back to Remax. It was like, oops, these were mistakes. I should go back to what was working. That didn't last very long. I went to Keller Williams because they were now the new bright shiny object, and they definitely had improved the industry. But the common factor with every other brokerage, except for the one that I'm in now, is that they have their like aha moment, like we're going to start a company like this. It's going to be better. It's a new, better mousetrap. But then they don't evolve, right? They if anything, it gets worse because as they grow, the things that were so cool about them kind of fall apart. So I switched from KW to EXP, and my basic agreement with every one of these brokers is leave me alone. This is my business. I'll have the benefit of knowing that I have E&O insurance through you, someone supervising my work. That helps with liability a little bit, depending on if they show up when you need them or not. But that was it. And I paid over $250,000 just in desk fees over my career. And then that's net, right? I did not get any of that, not a penny of that back until moving to Epic Realty. And it's like the new kid on the block, except we've been around for 3 years. We're in over 30 states. And when I started in October, we had 415 agents. I was the 415th. And now it's over 2,700. So that kind of growth in a year's time, there's some growing pains, right? But the reason that people are coming over is that let's just say it this way, on average, because they're offering 40 benefits, most of which other brokerages don't offer at all, it saves each agent in the company an average of $15,000 net a year. So I'm subtracting out the desk fee, the cap from that, and it's life-changing, right? And that's one way to make up for the cost of living increase that I mentioned earlier. That was by this economist estimate at $12,000 more to do the same business. But you can't do the same business today and have the success you were having 5 years ago, because you need to be competing with people that are higher tech than you, that are more cutting edge than you, that are reaching out to their clients in a more meaningful way, right? So I made a short list of some of the benefits that just add up, because people think, well, that doesn't make any sense because they're not making any money, but they charge $150 a month. The company doesn't have any debt whatsoever, zero debt. So there's no reason for them to fail. And from that $150 a month, they've negotiated these benefits so well that it covers it, right? So there's no risk of them going under because they're too generous. But what I came to was like, why isn't every brokerage giving back to their agents like this? Why does it seem like they're lining their pockets as much as possible at the highest level? And it's a new way of doing real estate. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it, because nothing has ever existed like this. They're giving, I'll be brief. I did a video on this. It goes into more detail, but the transaction coordinator that they provide That's saving, if you do 10 deals a year, that's a $4,000 savings. That's just one of the 40 benefits. They're doing listing photos. If you do 10 deals, it's $3,000. It's hard to do listing photos for less than $300 a listing. And, some of these expenses are out of pocket, whether you sell the house or not. So you're going to spend money on photos. You're going to spend money on your TC that preps the deal. It's amazing. Just those two things alone. But then they're also doing primary health care, urgent care 24/7, free prescriptions, roadside assistance, free car washes, veterinary medicine is available 24/7. It's things that agents want because the leaders who started this company are agents themselves, and they know, like, it's a lot to balance if you're running across town to deal with the sign installation. I mean, that takes hours of your life every time you have to do that. They do that for free. I mean, it's amazing how many little things that I just took for granted. Like, this is on me. No one's going to help me with this. And all of a sudden now I'm like, this seems too good to be true, right? Why isn't everyone doing this? And it's just it's a more generous way of doing business. And they're not trying to get rich off of every individual agent. They're trying to help so much that eventually it was pretty quick. At 50 agents, they were profitable by their model.
Yeah, so let me play devil's advocate for a second. So
Please.
it's like I'm an agent, and that's what's cool is that you were a part of EXP and KW. Because when people look at Epic, they'll be like, okay, it looks similar to KW and EXP and Real Broker. Those brokerages also, when they recruit agents, will say, look at all these benefits we give you. I mean, they do give things. It's not like they don't give anything. They do give things. And so then, having been at those other brokerages, what would you say is like some of the main differences that someone will notice and appreciate the most?
There's a mistake that agents make. I see them make this mistake, and I used to make this mistake. And it honestly was one of the reasons. It was a minor reason, but it was another reason I stayed at Remax for so long, is that we're told to believe that name recognition for the brokerage is important. That clients will come to you because they recognize the brand that you're representing in Remax or Windermere or any of these old brokerages that have been around forever. That's true that they're recognizable, but they're not helping people at a higher level than they were when they started 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? And I think that's an old way of thinking. It's like Sears and Roebuck used to have a great reputation, right? People would go there and get everything and know that they're going to get taken care of. They're out of business, at least in Portland. I don't know about nationwide, but that only gets you so far. Like, no one's going to work with you because you're at a name old school brokerage unless they like you and they trust you, right? So in my career, I started thinking about this. I couldn't come up with a single example, and I've helped thousands of clients. No one ever once said to me, I'm coming to you because of the brokerage that's supervising your business. They don't, I don't think, I mean, people say that happens.
As a buyer and seller and
Why would you
investor,
care?
don't even know. Like the
Yeah.
guy who just sold one of my properties, I forget what brokerage he's with. I don't know.
Yeah.
My other friend who has sold real estate, helped us buy and sell real estate. She's switched brokerages. I don't even literally doesn't matter. The consumer does not care. It's the person they're working with and the service they're getting. And the service they're getting is a function of the support comes from the support that agent gets from their brokerage to be able to offer a really great service. And then also the situation their brokerage puts them in so that they feel at ease and peace of mind and confident that they're going to be successful and that they can do a good job and not be so stressed out about.
That's coaching. So yeah, that's another thing that they talk about as a benefit is that they have coaching classes frequently. It's like, that's fine. It depends on the setup though. Like for me, after being in real estate for a few years, none of the classes that were being taught at say KW. I mean, that was designed, and with all due respect, I had a great time at KW. You know, they honored the contract with me that they signed. I don't have any complaints, and I thought I would stay there for a long time. Became kind of chaotic at a leadership level, and I'm not about chaos. I don't want to know that my office is in order. So they would have classes, but they were at a very introductory level, like how to use the MLS. God help me. I don't need to have a class on that after doing real estate for 25 years. And it was, taught by other agents who were required to teach classes to get some benefit. That's not an ideal setup. And it works for people that are very self-motivated and are basically going to survive and thrive no matter what, right? And that's back to the personal level. So if the main two things that are being presented as benefits aren't actually that helpful, the brand name recognition and the classes that are taught at a low level, I mean, again, with all due respect to people that are trying to give back to new agents, that I don't think that's what they need. They need something that's different for every agent, and they need it that day. Like if you have an agent who is trying to design a system where they can reach out to everyone they know and they have no idea how to do that, they need help in that specific thing. So you need a coach. And that's another thing, is that they would give you a coach for the first 3 deals. Like in your first 3 deals, you're just trying not to get sued. I mean, you're just trying to get it, like all the boxes checked, like, and get paid. I mean, it's brand new, and you're not in a great situation to learn everything you possibly can. So you need more deals than that. At Epic, you have a mentor and a coach forever, and you have several, and it's forever. So as long as you're in business, and you have people you can call and ask, like, I see online that you're really good at this particular thing. Like for me, I do a lot of commercial, considering that I'm a residential agent. And it came up in conversation. So I was like, I'm wanting to learn about commercial. I'll share everything that I've gathered up in my library for the last 25 years regarding commercial online, so that everyone who wants it has access to it. And you can call me anytime and ask, like, how do you do this? Or should I do this or that? I mean, it's just invaluable to have a resource available. The benefit.
Now, what about with, because like EXP has grown a ton, and they had that big online virtual world. They had all this tech that they partnered with, and they become huge, and so it's like, why didn't you stay with EXP? Why did you switch? Like, why, if an agent's looking at Epic and EXP, they'll see some similarities. Like, what's one versus the other?
They're similar looking on the surface, but the main difference, and I mean, I can talk about benefits all day long. We have, I think, probably 30 more benefits than EXP offers, easily, probably 40. But those benefits are symbolic of the very core principle that Epic was formed on, which was literally what helps our agents the most. Not how do we profit off of our agents' work as the primary goal, right? But knowing that if we help our agents and they're able to then help their clients at a higher level, everybody wins, right? So every single benefit is symbolic of that premise, wanting to help the agents so they can help their clients. Everyone has a better life. I mean, it's stressful. It's hard. It's not complicated necessarily. I mean, I have a friend who her whole business plan essentially is she contacts 6 people a day, has meaningful conversations with them. They enjoy it. She enjoys it. They send her business. That's it. That's not, but you know how many agents consistently connect with 6 people a day who know them? It's probably 2%, and they're the most successful, right? It's not a mystery, but that's very different. And the honoring what is promised is really important to me. And I honestly had a hard time believing that it was worth my time to invest in the revenue share system that EXP had, because they changed it after we had an agreement, they called it the sustainable system, the sustainable revenue share system. But that was like code for we need to make more money than we're making. So they made it hard. They made it hard enough that I stopped putting any time into trying to share with people what EXP was like. And I just
how
focused
do agents balance that, right? So Epic offers revenue sharing, EXP, and so then there's this opportunity, and this goes to, I think, one of the issues that agents have that fundamentally, structurally in the industry is, if all you do is help people buy and sell homes,
right,
then that's your revenue stream. It's a long sales cycle.
yeah,
There's things you can't control in whether it happens or not. At its core, you're not selling people on selling their home. You're not selling people on buying a home. They're making their own decision on their own. You're just helping them do it.
right.
And if that's your only revenue stream, then ask any business that's been around for a long time. If they only have one revenue stream, it's hard to succeed consistently year after year. And when you go through these like the stereotypical agent life is feast, famine, flood, drought in income coming in. And so the point of these revenue share models is to help create another stream of revenue. But then there's this balancing act of like, I need to go do stuff for real estate, but then I also want to, recruit and help other agents join, so I get to get a piece of this revenue stream. How do people do both?
Your first question, I moved over because after I convinced myself that it was not too good to be true, receiving all these benefits that are included with the cap that I'd not been getting before, I realized that the only reason to do that is that they're trying to legitimately help agents have a better life. That makes them so proud. I know them personally. We've had conversations face to face about this, and they are so pleased with themselves that they're helping so many agents. And it's just, they should be proud. It's never been done before. But I have a hard time when you say that EXP and Epic have a similar revenue share program, because there's some key differences, and that they're so different that for me, the EXP revenue share wasn't worth spending a moment on. I mean, I had some because I had naturally attracted agents and I got a little bit of compensation, but you have to have a certain number of capping agents on your first level at EXP before you can open the second level. And that was nearly impossible. Like, the number of people in the company that are doing that, I think it's like 5%, the last I heard, and it's been a while. But I would expect that maybe it's gotten even less likely because they keep making it harder. I don't like it when people change the agreement that you have without talking to you. That just doesn't seem.
Yep.
So the difference with Epic is that you receive 10% of whatever the agent pays towards their cap on all 5 levels. All 5 levels are always open. You could have no one on your first level, and the people on your second and third and fourth and fifth level, you still get paid. So it's like every time I had a question like that, like, what if you lose everyone on your first level at EXP? That means you get nothing for all the other levels because you're not qualified anymore. So I watched agents just working their tail off, trying to keep their first level open after the rules changed, right? It just didn't seem right to me. And it's not right. And the difference is that Epic really cares about their agents. That's what their main goal is. They don't recruit at all personally. They're not receiving any funds from agents that are joining like all the rest of us do. And they get paid in different ways. So it's not like they're not getting paid for what they do. They've made this amazing thing. But it's a share. It's not, and also you're not taking money away from the agent. You don't get a piece of their commission. You get a piece of their desk fee, their cap that they're paying to the company anyway. And it was set up from day one to share half of that back to the agents. It's incredibly generous. But even with that goal of generosity, they're actually running at a higher profit than the other brokerages that I've mentioned during this podcast. So they're like, it's like the restaurant business. Like if your margin is 3% on every desk fee that you get paid, you only get 3% of it. That's hard to stay in business, right? And so you're seeing these other companies struggling, and it's not common knowledge, but I can tell you right now that these other companies are struggling, and they're not keeping up, and they're losing agents hand over fist. It's just they're not talking about it for obvious reasons. So
try to explain the comp plan, the revenue share plan. Is it on the production of the agent, like or is it just on the desk fees?
So no, it's just on the desk fee. So when an agent pays their desk fee, and it ranges from $8,000 if you're on a power team, $10,000 if you're on any team, $15,000 if you're a solo agent on year one, but it also goes down by $1,000 a year until it hits $10,000. So everyone's going to end up with a worst case scenario of $10,000 cap. Out of that cap, and that's the number I use just because it's easy math, you get a percentage. You get 10% of that every time they pay towards their cap during the year. So you're paid monthly, and after a year, again, for easy math, you're making about $1,000 per agent who caps. So capping, maybe it's 10 homes, worst case, maybe it's 6, depending on the market. But so every agent who is actually full-time and successfully selling at least 10 homes, you're making $1,000 on every level. So they recommend somebody who joins, you get the same 10% on every level. So it's very simple. There's no tricks. You don't have to teach a class. You don't have to show up to the events across the country. And these are commonly required by other brokerages. You just get paid. It's that simple. You get 10% on whatever they pay towards their cap for 5 levels deep. And if you do the numbers, and I know we have, right? It's looking at signing up 3 people. And then if those people sign up 3 people and you go down 5 levels deep, it's 243 people. And if you're making $1,000 a person, I mean, so what if you're wrong by double, right? What if none of those people sell more than 5 houses? Cut it in half. It's still an extra $121,000 a year passive income that you get from bringing this amazing life-changing opportunity to these agents, right? That's hard not to talk about.
What is like the workflow? So say I'm an Epic agent, because this is where some of these, like you said, materials or how to do it. It's like, so I join Epic because I like the plan for myself individually, and that's why I encourage with anyone who's involved in whether a brokerage, revenue sharing, or any other these types of companies.
Right.
It's like you join first because you like the company and like what they give you, and then you're probably going to tell people that you like your brokerage, and then now you can get paid when it happens. But then what's the workflow? So it's like, okay, I'm an Epic agent, and now I like it, and I want to tell other agents they should join.
Right.
Do I have to do presentations? Is it or like
No.
how do I teach new people how it works so that they go, yeah, I want to join too, and then it all works out?
Yeah. So there's a big issue that people have when they see someone who's hired a speaking coach, hired a professional person to build them a podcast studio. I mean, you can make your money back eventually, but maybe not. You can't. That's hard to replicate. But in this model, they do not want Epic to be another one of these companies. Like, oh yeah, it's like MLM where they're all trying to recruit other agents all the time. No, they only want you to talk to people who already know you, who respect your opinion, and not to lead with that. It's like if someone's saying any of the 40 benefits they're missing, like I wish I had a transaction coordinator, but I can't afford one because they're $300 to $500 a transaction. Most of them you have to pay even if the transaction falls apart a little bit, if not all of it. And that's included at Epic. Maybe they're having issues paying their prescriptions. Some people pay thousands of dollars a month for their medical prescriptions. 90% of the prescriptions are free through Epic. right? Maybe they're having issues with I just had a friend who paid thousands of dollars for their dog to go to the vet, and ended up being a minor problem. They wanted to do CT scans, and I mean, you have 24/7 access to a veterinarian online who can help you sort out the best way to proceed. And this is why I'm not making this number up, but the average net savings is $15,000 a year per agent. That's even before we added 10 more benefits a couple of months ago. So it's more than that now. I would guess it's closer to 20,000. But that's the kind of thing that is easy to talk about, comes up in conversation. I don't have like a time block where I'm just calling agents to tell them about Epic. No. But as it comes up in conversation, like, oh, my just the expense of me paying for my yard signs is hard right now. That's included. The signs are included, the installation is included, the taking down of the signs is included. And that's not a lot of money, but it's, it's $75 to $100 each time you do a sign. Depending on how long it stays up, it could be double that. So that ends up, but it's easy to talk about. It's actually hard not to talk about. I spend most of my efforts, like, I'm a little giddy because I just got my listing photographs paid for. I've got a digital billboard that promotes my listing. And for me, I'm promoted on that same billboard forever, for as long as I'm with Epic. I have a digital billboard that I priced it out one time. It's thousands of dollars a month. It's like, that's never happening. And I don't know, like, I'm not having people calling me saying, I want to have you as my agent because I saw you on a billboard. That's not the point. But the value of brand recognition, it's hard to put your finger on. It's like, it's huge, right? People are saying, you look familiar. And I know I've not met them before. It's like, yeah, well, on a massive billboard by the highway. Maybe that's it. But I don't, it's just
when was Epic founded?
3 years ago. They were only in Texas. They had one location and one state was open. Until last year they added like 18, and then they got easier. They got, the reason they're not in all 50 states already is that at the state level, sometimes there's so many hoops to jump through. It takes a while, but they will be within the next few months.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, again, the founders of Epic, it was challenging times 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was COVID, right? And it's like, well, you want to start a brokerage in COVID? You want to, and it's like, well, the needs of agents and therefore new brokerage models need to be created,
right? Or evolve.
And if the other ones aren't evolving, which I can like, it's having had a company for 12 years, like, I can understand, and they've been around, these brokerages have been around for decades.
Yeah.
It's like, it ain't that easy to just evolve sometimes.
No.
And that's why new business models are needed.
Right.
It's why new brokerages are needed.
Epic was formed with AI centered at the middle of it, right? It just, I don't know, that's redundant, but since they were formed after AI was available, they have that as part of their system folded in. And with that mindset of staying relevant, staying cutting edge, staying on pace with technology, they've changed major things just in the few months that I've been here. Like the whole document processing software that they had, they actually changed that twice, and now they're using Loop, which is the #1 in the country and the best, hands down. So they're not afraid to change things, and they'll be the first to say, I don't think this is robust enough. I don't think this, which was working 2 months ago fine, isn't going to be working as well next year. So we're going to change it now and anticipate that. And other brokerages are trying to add benefits to compete with us because they see how things are going. And it's expensive for them because they don't have it baked into their system, right? And they weren't as generous with what profit and revenue they were sharing. So it's hard to make that change without completely retooling and starting from scratch. And, some of these things that make Epic amazing have been years in the making, right? And years to negotiate medical care that is affordable within even that one benefit within the $150 a month. I mean, you can pay it a year in advance and you save a lot. It's only $99 a month if you do it a year in advance. But I mean, it's just kind of a no-brainer where people don't believe it. They, like me, they think it's too good to be true, or the company is going to have massive debt and go under. There's no debt. It's black and white. There's zero debt, and they just bootstrap this whole thing. I mean, it's like a dream the way they did it. It was very difficult, very challenging, but they don't give up. And it's just the difference of being an agent, working for a brokerage with leaders like this versus leaders who are more typical, think of any major business where you don't expect the leaders are trying to give back to their people as much as possible as their primary goal, right? That's just different. You expect them to be lining their pockets, and they are trying to do that, but not
to an extent. Not every business owner is in the time, space, financial situation, or just has the values to then not charge their customers or clients or agents as much.
Right.
Like they're forced, they feel
to
do it a certain way. And it's astounding. I think this is going to be a huge trend for all industries over the next many decades. There will be copycats where the owners don't need to make as much money or don't want to make as much money. They're not trying to be a billionaire. And so therefore they just come out with a better mousetrap than the competitor because they're just not as greedy.
That'd be great. They want that. They want people to
and they want to change. It's gonna happen in every industry because these big corporations and these people are just making so much money. I had this one thought the other day that I think there's going to be a revolt to big influencers and creators. They're just making a boatload of money.
Yeah. Well, everything's down.
Why? Why do you get to make so much money for literally saying the same thing? Like this really grinds my gears. There's this one influencer who has a really big following, and then because of the big following, he's now making money in a space that he has no right to be making money in because he's not an expert at it.
Right.
But he knows that if he just pumps out a course on this topic, he's going to make an extra $1 million probably from his massive following.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, there's something wrong with that ecosystem because people who are actually experts, who have dedicated their life to this industry, should be the ones who get to make some money off of people who need this information. Like, it's not to say his information is wrong. That why are you making it when this is not? You just literally woke up and was like, I am just going to make this course on this topic because I know I can make an extra 7 figures because of the way advertising, social media marketing works.
That's disappointing.
and so then
people who spend their life honing their skills deserve to be compensated for that.
And I'm excited. I mean, we won't get into it on this pod. Maybe another pod we talk about. So it's the next pod. I want to go deeper on how to get clients and just go ping pong back and forth. How to get clients, because I know that's the main thing. And what I'm excited about is as I start my new company, applying that same methodology. Like I would like for people to, good for the guys at Epic. I would love for my clients to say that Amanda and Grant are not greedy software founders,
right?
Who are looking for some crazy big fucking $1 billion exit, because that's the culture of software. Is you want to make money, go build a software company, and then your customers are paying, and that's where I'm sure there's inflation in software costs. They're just paying all this money to then make the owners rich and have some big exit.
Well, what you're talking about is giving back in a more authentic way, right? That comes
Yeah.
back around full circle. And it's not just that, it's you at the top of the company are working for everyone else, right? And that's one of the things that I love about the leadership here at Epic is that they honestly 100% know to be true. They work for us. And then I work for the agents in Oregon as a managing state broker. That's my job to get them what they need to be successful. I'm not counting on them to help me, right? I don't get a penny from them directly. It comes from what they pay the company, and then the company pays me. So it's just a different model, and it's different by 180 degrees. It's not this standard pyramid where the person at the top is just making all the money and doing almost nothing. It's the opposite, right? It's shared. It's everyone's an owner in the company, and I think it's a model that is going to be replicated a lot. Everyone's delighted about that. We want to help all the agents, not just the agents at Epic, but if the expectation becomes our leadership works for us, they're not just up there doing nothing and lining their pockets. That's a game changer, right? And that leads to more and more benefits because they're sitting around thinking, okay, now we have 50,000 agents, we can add 50 more benefits. I mean, they're not done. It's a great model. And then what you were mentioning about helping people through the revenue share, I think that's something that people really appreciate because you need more revenue streams so you're not dependent on just one. And it needs to be all related, right? You can't do I'm going to work at Walmart for half my time and do real estate for half my time and bartend in the evenings. That'll never coalesce into something that you can thrive with. It has to be related to your expertise in your area. So that's one of the reasons I love working with you at Hilo is that it's directly related.
Yeah, there's activities you need to do to grow your business. There's software and technology you need to buy to help you grow your business. And I'll leave this hook so everyone tunes in for the next time, because we'll go into it later. There hasn't been a revenue sharing company like Epic from the real estate tech vendor side, because you need website, email, social media, AI chatbots, calendar booking software, and the list goes on, Google My Business, or reviews management. You need all this software.
Podcast.
And there isn't podcasts. You need to do interviews. You need to create content on social media. And the reality is you're probably not going to have a revenue stream from YouTube, but you need to be on YouTube.
Right.
And so who can be the company that gives you revenue sharing on the tools that you need to grow your business and keeps you doing the activities that will build you a great business while giving you another revenue stream while you go do those activities?
I think I know the answer, but I won't say it.
This is the breakthrough that Charles and I had, and we hope to bring some really more information and more solutions for all you realtors who are watching. That's the pod. Let's cut it. See you next time.
Cheers.